Dorm kits? Doormen wait by the curb, not at the entrance. Didn't they train you?
Preston Whitmore didn't even look at the black man's face, just his suit, his shoes, his hands. He snapped his fingers twice. Never mind, just take my bags upstairs, presidential suite, and move quickly. I don't have all day to wait while you figure out basic instructions. The black man's jaw tightened. Sir, I believe there's been a... I don't pay you to believe. I pay you to carry bags. Preston shoved 3 Louis Vuitton bags and an alligator briefcase toward him. And be gentle. That briefcase is worth more than whatever beat-up car you drove here in. He turned away, phone already at his ear, then paused, looked back. Oh, and one more thing. Try not to look so uncomfortable. I know places like this can be intimidating for people like you, but you need to at least pretend you belong here, even if we both know you don't. The sound of a Bentley door closing echoed across Michigan Avenue as Preston's chauffeur drove away to park. Preston's Italian leather shoes, $3,000 a pair, clicked against the pavement as he strode toward the Ritz-Carlton entrance. The black man stood there for 3 seconds. The only sound was traffic honking in the distance and the wind rustling through the Chicago streets. His expression was unreadable. Then he took the bags without another word. Preston was already inside the lobby, barking orders at someone about quarterly projections and market shares and whether the jet would be ready for Aspen next week. He never looked back. The black man walked past the coat check and set Preston's bags down carefully against the wall. Then he turned, straightened his tie, adjusted the leather portfolio under his arm, and walked back into the main ballroom where investors were gathering for the annual Tech Venture Capital Summit. 3 people rushed toward him immediately. Marcus, there you are. A woman in her 60s, silver hair styled perfectly, Chanel suit that probably cost more than most people's cars, extended both hands warmly. Her smile was genuine, the kind you can't fake. Congratulations on the appointment, she said, gripping his hands. We've been hearing incredible things about your work at NextGen Innovations. Marcus Thornton smiled back, a real smile, the kind that reached his eyes. Thank you, Victoria. I appreciate the warm welcome. A portly man with kind eyes and an expensive watch stepped forward next. The tech world's been buzzing since the announcement. Youngest CEO in NextGen's 50-year history. And those projections you've already released? Revolutionary. That AI infrastructure platform could reshape the entire industry. Across the lobby, Preston stood near the registration desk. He glanced over at the group surrounding Marcus. Confusion flickered across his face for just a second. Then someone handed him a conference program, and he was back to networking, dropping names, inflating numbers, playing the game he'd perfected over 20 years. What Preston Whitmore didn't know, couldn't have known as he schmoozed his way through the crowd, was that the doorman he'd just humiliated was Marcus Thornton, CEO of NextGen Innovations, one of 3 companies competing for the $500 million investment being announced that very day. And those words? People like you don't belong here. They would haunt Preston Whitmore for the rest of his life because that single moment of arrogance, that assumption, that dismissal, that casual cruelty would cost him his reputation, company, and entire life. That day it was 2 men, same hotel, same ambition, same goal, but only one of them earned it. Marcus Thornton didn't come from money. He came from brilliance. The kind of brilliance that gets you a full scholarship to MIT at 16. The kind that has Google calling before you turn 25. The kind that produces 3 patents for AI-driven infrastructure systems that make Silicon Valley's elite stop and pay attention. NextGen Innovations had gambled everything on him, made him their youngest CEO at 32, their first black CEO in 50 years of operation. The tech press called it a risky but inspired choice. Marcus knew what they really meant. He'd been reading between those lines his entire life. But he also knew something else, something they'd learn soon enough. He was better than all of them. Preston Whitmore, on the other hand, came from a different kind of story. Old money. Connecticut money. The kind where your great-grandfather's name is on a building at Yale and your trust fund has a trust fund. Whitmore Dynamics wasn't bleeding money, it was hemorrhaging. The quarterly reports showed it in red numbers that couldn't be hidden much longer. Stock price at $47 per share, but only because Preston had become an expert at one thing: appearances, the private jet, the penthouse office, the Macallan 25 scotch in crystal decanters. All of it designed to hide the truth. His company had maybe 6 months before collapse, but today's pitch could save everything. $500 million would buy him 2 more years, maybe 3. Long enough to sell the company before anyone realized the foundation was rotting. There was just one problem: Marcus Thornton. Preston had seen NextGen's projections. He'd read the reports his team pulled together. Marcus's AI infrastructure platform wasn't just good, it was paradigm shifting. The kind of technology that makes competitors obsolete within 5 years. And that terrified Preston more than bankruptcy. Because if Marcus won today, Preston wouldn't just lose money, he'd lose relevance. Both men stood in the same hotel. Both wanted the same investment. Both believed they deserved to win. But only one of them was right, and only one would leave Chicago with their reputation intact. Success isn't about where you start, it's about what you build with what you're given. The question was, which man understood that truth? 4 hours later, Preston Whitmore sat in his temporary office suite on the executive floor. It wasn't really an office, just a converted conference room the Ritz-Carlton rented out to VIP guests. But Preston had transformed it into his command center. Laptop open, documents spread across the mahogany table, a crystal glass of Macallan 25 sweating on a coaster. His assistant, Grace Kim, sat across from him reviewing pitch materials. Sharp eyes. Sharper mind. She'd been with Whitmore Dynamics for 3 years and had learned to anticipate Preston's needs before he voiced them. Right now, her expression said she was worried. "Sir, the financial projections in slide 17? They're fine." Preston didn't look up from his phone. He was on speaker with his lawyers, again. "Mr. Whitmore, regarding the SEC inquiry about the Q2 reporting discrepancy," the lawyer's voice crackled through the phone. "It's a minor securities violation, a paperwork issue, nothing more." Preston's tone was dismissive. "Handle it quietly. I don't want this distracting from today's pitch." Grace shifted in her seat, but said nothing. Preston ended the call and stood, walking to the window. Downtown Chicago stretched out below him. He took a sip of scotch and let himself imagine what $500 million would feel like. 2 more years of this view, maybe 3. That's when he noticed the security monitor mounted on the wall. His eyes narrowed. "Grace, who the hell is that?" He pointed at the screen showing the executive floor corridor. A black man in a navy suit was standing outside one of the CEO suites, speaking with hotel security. Grace squinted at the monitor. "I'm not sure, sir. Should I?" "That's the doorman from earlier." Preston's face reddened. His voice rose. "What the hell is he doing up here? This is the executive floor. He shouldn't even have access." Grace looked uncertain. "Sir, I don't think..." But Preston was already grabbing his phone, already dialing hotel security. "Yes, this is Preston Whitmore in Suite 4200. There's an intruder on the executive floor." His voice carried authority, command, the tone of someone used to being obeyed. "Black male, early 30s, navy suit. He was working as a doorman earlier and now he's lurking outside the CEO suites. Probably casing them." Grace's eyes widened. "Sir, maybe we should..." Preston held up a hand, silencing her. "I want him removed immediately. No, I don't care what he says he's doing up here. This is a security issue. We have 3 CEOs with sensitive materials in these suites. Get him out, now." He ended the call and turned back to the window. Took another sip of scotch. "Can't be too careful," he muttered. "These hotels hire anyone these days. Diversity quotas over competence." What Preston didn't see, what the security cameras would capture perfectly, was what was really happening in that corridor. Marcus Thornton wasn't casing anything. He was searching, frantically, for his wallet and phone. Both had vanished sometime after he'd carried Preston's bags inside. His next-gen CEO credentials. His phone with all his pitch materials backed up. His driver's license. His credit cards. Everything. Gone. And in less than 2 hours, he'd need to pitch to 300 investors for $500 million. But right now, 4 Chicago Police Department officers were stepping off the elevator, heading straight for him. Subscribe before you miss how this gets worse. The lead officer had 15 years on the force. Stern face. No-nonsense expression. The kind of cop who'd seen everything and believed nothing. "Sir, we need you to identify yourself." Marcus looked up from checking his pockets for the 3rd time. 4 officers surrounded him. Hotel security stood behind them. Down the hall, a door cracked open and someone peeked out before quickly closing it again. Of course. My credentials are... Marcus reached for his inside jacket pocket. Empty. He checked his other pocket. Also empty. My wallet was right here. His voice stayed calm, but his eyes showed the first hint of panic. Just a moment. He patted down his suit jacket, checked his pants pockets, felt inside his portfolio. Nothing. Sir, do you have any identification? The officer's hand moved closer to his belt. Not threatening. Not yet. Just ready. My phone. I had my phone. Marcus's movements became more frantic. He checked every pocket again. Both were just someone took them. Sure they did. One of the younger officers, couldn't have been more than 25, muttered under his breath. Marcus's head snapped toward him. Their eyes met. The younger officer looked away first. I'm Marcus Thornton. I'm the CEO of Next Gen Innovations. I'm here for the Tech Venture Summit. He gestured toward the ballroom downstairs. If you'll just let me contact my office, they can verify. Sir, do you have any form of identification on you right now? Marcus took a breath, steadied himself, then methodically checked every pocket one more time. His fingers found something in his inner jacket pocket, a plastic card. Relief washed over his face. He pulled it out, then his blood ran cold. It was a janitor's ID badge, cheap laminated plastic, the kind hotels issue to cleaning staff. Name, Dwayne Johnson, obviously fake. Employee number 0894. That's not mine. Marcus's voice was tight, controlled, but something shifted in his expression, a weariness that went deeper than this moment. I've never seen this before in my life. Someone planted. Sir, I need you to turn around and place your hands behind your back. Wait, just wait. Marcus held up both hands, palms out. This is a misunderstanding. I'm a CEO. I'm speaking at this conference. My face is on the program downstairs. If you'll just... Sir, turn around now. For 3 seconds, Marcus stood perfectly still. His mind was racing. How many times had this happened? How many rooms where people assumed he didn't belong? How many credentials he'd had to show? How many times he'd had to prove he wasn't a threat? But this was different. This wasn't just an assumption. This was a setup. Someone had taken his wallet, his phone, his credentials, and planted a fake janitor's badge in his pocket. Someone wanted him arrested. The handcuffs clicked shut around his wrists. You're making a mistake, Marcus said quietly. Not angry, just tired. A very big mistake. That's what they all say, the young officer muttered. As they led him toward the elevator, Marcus caught his reflection in the mirrored wall. Navy suit, expensive watch, leather portfolio now being held by hotel security as evidence, and handcuffs. He thought about his father, about every conversation they'd had about moments like this, about staying calm, about dignity, about how excellence wasn't enough if people had already decided what box you belonged in. The elevator doors opened. Meanwhile, 4 floors down in Suite 4200, Preston Whitmore poured himself another scotch. One competitor down. His phone buzzed, a text from Grace. Sir, I did that background check you requested on the man who was just arrested. Preston smirked, took a sip, savored the victory. Then he opened the message, and the scotch glass slipped from his hand. Was the arrest justified? Comment, guilty or not guilty. The text message had 3 words and a photo. Sir, that was Marcus Thornton. Preston stared at his phone. The photo showed a professional headshot. The same man, same face, same Navy suit, but the caption underneath made Preston's world tilt. Marcus Thornton, CEO, Next Gen Innovations, featured Forbes, TechCrunch, Bloomberg Technology. Who? Preston's voice came out hoarse. His phone rang immediately. Grace. Sir, Marcus Thornton, CEO of Next Gen Innovations. Her voice was careful, measured, like she was explaining something to a child. He's one of the 3 finalists pitching today. His face is literally on the conference program, page 4. Preston grabbed the conference program from his desk, flipped to page 4. There he was, the doorman, CEO, MIT graduate, 3 patents, 32 years old, called The Future of American Infrastructure by Business Insider. The scotch glass that had been in Preston's hand hit the marble floor. Crystals shattered. Amber liquid spread across white marble like blood. That's impossible. Preston's mind raced, replaying the moment, the tailored suit, the leather portfolio, the way those investors had greeted him. He was He was standing by the door like, I gave him my bags. He took them. Sir, you might want to issue an apology. Grace's voice cut through his panic. If this gets out, if the media finds out you had a competing CEO arrested, no. Silence on the line. Sir? No apology. Preston's shock was transforming into something else. Calculation, survival mode. That would admit fault. That would make it look like I did something wrong. Sir, you did... We spin this differently. Preston started pacing, his mind working. Think about it, Grace. So what if he's a CEO? That doesn't change what he is. More silence. This time it felt heavier. You know it. I know it. Everyone in that ballroom knows it, even if they won't say it out loud. Preston's voice took on the tone of a man convincing himself more than anyone else. 200 years ago, he'd have been shining my shoes, not competing with me for investments. Mr. Whitmore, a fancy title doesn't change genetics, Grace. The words came faster now, harder. It doesn't change the natural order of things. He got that position because of diversity quotas, affirmative action, not merit, not excellence, just checkboxes on some HR form. Grace's silence on the other end was deafening. Preston kept talking, kept justifying, kept building his defense. Get me everything you can on Thornton, every bad quarter, every missed projection, every disappointed investor. If he's as good as they say, there has to be something, skeleton somewhere. His voice hardened. We bury him before that pitch, discredit him, make the investors question whether he's really CEO material or just another diversity hire who got lucky. Sir, I really don't think... Do it, Grace. That's not a request. The line went dead. Preston stood alone in his suite, glass crunching under his Italian leather shoes. The security monitor still showed the corridor where Marcus had been arrested, empty now. Preston poured another scotch with shaking hands. The handcuffs came off 20 minutes later. Marcus sat in a hotel security office. Small room, fluorescent lights, generic motivational poster on the wall about excellence in service. The head of hotel security, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a tired expression, handed him his phone and wallet. Found in a trash can near the service elevator, she said quietly. I'm very sorry, Mr. Thornton. This was a terrible misunderstanding. Marcus took his belongings, checked his phone. 17 missed calls, 23 text messages, all from his team wondering where he was. The police officers stood near the door, looking anywhere but at Marcus. The young one, the one who'd muttered, "Sure they did," studied his shoes like they held the secrets of the universe. Protocol, the lead officer said. No apology in his voice, just the word, like that explained everything. We responded to a call. We followed procedure. Marcus said nothing, just put his phone in his pocket, his wallet in his jacket. Honest mistake, another officer added. Honest mistake. Marcus had heard those words before. Different cities, different situations, same outcome. He stood, straightened his tie. The officers shifted uncomfortably. Am I free to go? Of course, Mr. Thornton. Again, our apologies for the... Marcus walked past them without another word. In the elevator, he caught his reflection again. Same suit, same watch, same face. But something felt different now. He thought about the finger snap, about Preston's words. People like you don't belong here. About how many rooms he'd walked into where people assumed he was the help, the intern, the diversity hire, anything but what he actually was. He thought about his father's words, words he'd heard 1,000 times growing up. Excellence is your only answer, son. Not anger, not bitterness. Just excellence so loud they can't ignore it. The elevator doors opened to the executive floor. Marcus had less than 90 minutes until his pitch. 90 minutes to compose himself, to review his materials, to become the CEO who would change American infrastructure forever. But right now, in this moment, he allowed himself 5 seconds of something else. Anger, pure, justified, focused. Then he took a breath, let it go, and walked toward his suite. But things took a crazier turn at the main event. Evidence rolled in and everything changed. The grand ballroom of the Ritz-Carlton held 300 people. Venture capitalists, tech investors, journalists from every major publication. The kind of people who decided which companies became unicorns and which ones faded into obscurity. 3 companies would pitch today. 3 CEOs would make their case, but only one would walk away with $500 million. Marcus Thornton stood backstage. Navy suit pressed, tie straight, no visible sign of what had happened 90 minutes earlier. No hint of the handcuffs, the accusations, the planted evidence, just calm, focus, excellence. Ladies and gentlemen, our first presenter, Marcus Thornton, CEO of Next Gen Innovations. The applause was polite, professional. Marcus walked onto the stage. The lights were bright, hot. He could see the first 3 rows clearly. After that, just silhouettes in the glow of laptop screens. He clicked to his first slide. The future isn't about building more. His voice filled the room, strong, clear, no hesitation. It's about building smarter. Click. Next slide. A map of America with 3 cities highlighted in blue. Detroit, Pittsburgh, Cleveland. He paused. Let the names sink in. Cities that traditional tech firms wrote off as Rust Belt relics. Cities they called declining, dying, not worth the investment. Another click, before and after graphs. But we saw what others didn't. We saw laboratories for the future. We saw infrastructure that could be transformed. We saw potential. The investors leaned forward. Some opened notebooks. Others typed. NextGen's AI infrastructure platform doesn't just optimize power grids. It revolutionizes them. Marcus's passion came through now. This was his life's work. Our system reduces carbon emissions by 40%. It predicts infrastructure failures before they happen. It saves municipalities billions in maintenance costs. Click, a video played. Detroit's power grid lighting up, data flowing, systems connecting. In Detroit alone, our pilot program reduced energy costs by $47 million in 1 year. He let that number hang in the air, while creating 1,200 new jobs, jobs that didn't exist before, jobs that won't disappear when the next recession hits. More typing, more note-taking. Victoria, the silver-haired investor who'd congratulated him earlier, nodded approvingly. America doesn't need another app for ordering lunch. A few people chuckled. We don't need another social media platform where people argue about politics. What we need is infrastructure that works for the 21st century. Final slide. NextGen's logo. Simple, clean, powerful. We need systems that reduce inequality instead of amplifying it. Technology that serves communities instead of extracting from them. Innovation that builds up instead of tearing down. Marcus looked out at the audience, made eye contact with investors in the front row. NextGen is building that future, not in Silicon Valley boardrooms, not in theoretical white papers, but in real cities, with real people, creating real results. He paused. 1 beat, 2. Thank you. The applause was different this time. Louder, genuine. People stood, not everyone, but enough. Marcus walked off stage. His team surrounded him immediately. Congratulations, backslaps, excitement, but Marcus's eyes found the side stage entrance. Preston Whitmore stood there, jaw clenched, face red, watching. Their eyes met. Preston looked away first. Next presenter, the moderator announced. Preston Whitmore, CEO of Whitmore Dynamics. And what Preston said next would end his career in less than 3 minutes. Don't look away, this gets intense fast. Preston Whitmore took the stage like he owned it. Confident stride, perfect smile, designer suit that probably cost more than some people's monthly rent. He'd done this 1,000 times. Pitched to bigger rooms, tougher crowds. This should have been easy. Good afternoon. His voice was smooth, practiced. I'm Preston Whitmore, and Whitmore Dynamics has been innovating in the tech infrastructure space for 20 years. Click. Slick graphics, professional slides. Numbers that looked impressive if you didn't examine them too closely. We've delivered consistent returns to our investors. 300% growth over 5 years. Partnerships with Fortune 500 companies. A proven track record of excellence. The investors watched, polite, professional, but something felt off. The energy in the room had shifted after Marcus's presentation. Preston felt it, and it rattled him. Halfway through his pitch, he deviated from his script. Now, I know my competitor made some compelling points. His tone shifted, became casual, too casual, very compelling, very articulate. He let that word hang in the air. A few people in the audience shifted uncomfortably. Preston didn't notice, or didn't care. But let's be honest about something nobody wants to say out loud. He leaned against the podium, like he was sharing a secret with friends. We're talking about infrastructure here. American infrastructure. Our power grids, our transportation systems, our national security. Victoria's eyes narrowed. Are we really going to trust all of that to a company led by someone who, let's just say it, would have been working in my fields 200 years ago if we're talking about historical context? The room went silent. Not the good kind of silent. The kind where people stop breathing. Preston plowed forward, apparently mistaking shock for agreement. I'm not saying anything controversial here. I'm just saying what we're all thinking. His voice got louder, more insistent. These diversity hires are great for optics. Wonderful for press releases. Makes everyone feel good about themselves. Someone in the back row stood up and walked out. But when we're talking about $500 million of real money, of your money, we need proven leadership. Traditional leadership. The kind that built this country in the first place. Victoria stood, her Chanel suit jacket perfectly pressed, her face a mask of controlled fury. She walked toward the exit. 3 more investors followed. Then 5. Then 10. Preston's confident expression cracked. Now wait, I didn't mean... What I'm trying to say is... The moderator's hand moved toward the microphone controls. We need people who understand American values, American traditions, not someone who got their position because some HR department needed to fill a quota. The microphone cut off. Preston's mouth kept moving, but no sound came out. He looked down at the podium, tapped the microphone, nothing. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a brief intermission before our final presenter. The moderator's voice was ice cold. Preston stood alone on stage. 50 people had walked out. The remaining 250 sat in stunned silence. He walked off stage. No applause, no polite clapping, just silence. Grace Kim waited in the wings, her laptop tucked under her arm, her hands shaking slightly. But her voice was steady. Mr. Whitmore, I need to speak with the investment committee. Not now, Grace. We need damage control. Get the PR team on the phone and... No, sir. She walked past him, toward the moderator's table. You're done giving orders. 10 minutes later, the ballroom's main screen flickered to life. Security footage, high definition. Time-stamped 11:47 a.m. The video showed Preston entering a hotel suite. Marcus's suite, the one assigned to Next Gen Innovations. The room watched as Preston looked around, furtive, guilty. Then he moved to the desk, picked up a phone and wallet, pocketed them, pulled something from his own pocket, a janitor's badge, placed it deliberately where the wallet had been. But he wasn't finished. Preston walked to a display stand. A golf club, vintage, clearly valuable. He picked it up, used it to smash the television mounted on the wall. Glass shattered silently on the screen. Then he wiped the handle with his handkerchief, set it back carefully. Timestamp 11:52 m. 8 minutes before he called the police about an intruder. The ballroom erupted. Gasps, shouting, people on their phones immediately. Grace queued up the second video. Preston's suite. Different angle. Audio crystal clear. Preston's voice filled the room. 200 years ago, he'd have been shining my shoes, not competing with me for investments. Someone in the audience swore loudly. A fancy title doesn't change genetics, Grace. It doesn't change the natural order. More voices. Anger. Disgust. Phones recording the screen. The video ended. Grace Kim walked to the front of the ballroom. Every eye on her. I've worked for Preston Whitmore for 3 years. Her voice didn't shake. I've watched him manipulate quarterly reports, mislead investors, falsify projections to hide losses. I stayed quiet because I needed the job, because I told myself it wasn't my problem. She turned to face the investment committee directly. But today was different. Today he tried to destroy a man's career. Maybe even get him arrested and charged with crimes. Not because of competition, not because of business, but simply because of the color of his skin. She pulled out a folder, handed it to the committee chairman. This contains documentation of Whitmore Dynamics' actual financial status. The company is 3 months from insolvency. The stock price is artificial. The contracts are inflated. Preston doesn't want your $500 million to build anything. Her voice hardened. He wants it to maintain his penthouse and his Bentley and his private jet while the company collapses around him, while employees lose their jobs, while investors lose their money. She looked at Preston. He sat frozen in his seat, face the color of old newspaper. "I quit. Effective immediately." The room exploded into chaos. Preston's world collapsed in real time. 2 hours after Grace's revelation, the investment committee gathered in a private conference room. The vote was unanimous, all 12 members, no discussion needed. $500 million to next-gen innovations, $0 to Whitmore Dynamics. Preston sat in his suite, alone. The crystal decanter of Macallan 25 was empty now. His phone kept buzzing. Texts, calls, emails, all bad news. 6 hours after the pitch, Whitmore Dynamics Board of Directors held an emergency meeting via video conference. 14 board members, 13 voted to remove Preston as CEO immediately. The 14th abstained, his own father. 24 hours later, the clients started calling, not to ask questions, not to express concern, just to terminate contracts. Goldman Sachs, gone. McKinsey Partnership, dissolved. The Dallas Infrastructure Project, 3 years in development, canceled. The stock price told the story in numbers. Monday morning, $47 per share. Monday afternoon, after the security footage leaked online, $31. Tuesday morning, $18. Wednesday, $7. Thursday, $3.12. Friday, Whitmore Dynamics filed for bankruptcy protection. 20 years of business gone in 5 days. But the financial collapse was just the beginning. 48 hours after the pitch, the SEC announced a formal investigation into securities fraud. Those minor violations Preston had dismissed? Not so minor when investigators actually looked. His lawyers negotiated, begged, made deals. The final plea agreement: criminal trespass, theft, destruction of property, filing a false police report, 2 years probation, 500 hours of community service, $47,000 in restitution for damages. No jail time. But that wasn't the real punishment. Preston's wife, Margot, filed for divorce before the bankruptcy papers were signed. Their marriage had lasted 8 years. She'd married the lifestyle, not the man. She was honest about that, at least. The settlement gave her the house in Aspen, the art collection, 12 pieces worth over $2 million, the yacht docked in Miami. Preston got to keep his legal bills and his shame. The Chicago Police Department issued a statement, carefully worded by lawyers. "We apologize to Mr. Marcus Thornton for the regrettable incident based on misinformation provided to our officers. We have reviewed our procedures to prevent similar situations in the future." Translation: please don't sue us. Marcus didn't. He had better things to do. But the social consequences? Those were worse than any courtroom. Every major tech firm blacklisted Preston. Not officially, nothing in writing. But the message was clear. Google, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Meta. None of them would touch him. Investors dropped him. People he'd known for 15 years. People who'd made millions off his deals. They deleted his number, blocked his emails, acted like he'd never existed. The country clubs revoked his memberships. All 4 of them. The Metropolitan Club sent a letter. Professional, polite, final. After careful consideration, we have determined that your continued membership is no longer aligned with our institutional values. Preston Whitmore, who'd commanded boardrooms, closed billion-dollar deals, and dismissed competitors with a snap of his fingers, found himself unemployable in the industry where he'd worked for 20 years. His penthouse in Chicago, seized by creditors. His Bentley, repossessed. The private jet, gone. Everything that had defined him, everything that had made him Preston Whitmore instead of just another guy with money problems, all of it, gone. 6 months later, Preston was living in a 1-bedroom apartment in Schaumburg, 30 miles from downtown, the kind of place where the elevator broke twice a month and the parking lot flooded when it rained. He'd started a business. Precision Auto Detailing, a converted garage in a strip mall near O'Hare Airport, sandwiched between a Thai restaurant and a tax preparation office. The work was honest, the pay was terrible, but it was all he had. And on a Tuesday evening in April, as the sun set over Chicago and Preston was closing up shop, a car pulled into the parking lot. A midnight blue Koenigsegg Jesko. $3 million on wheels. The scissor doors rose up like wings. and Marcus Thornton stepped out. We've all seen justice served, but this final moment hits different. Preston emerged from the garage carrying a bucket and spray bottle. He stopped dead when he saw the car. Then he saw the man standing beside it. The color drained from his face. "Hello, Preston." Marcus's voice was calm, even. No anger, no triumph, just stating a fact. Preston's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Mr. Thornton, I didn't know you were the client for this appointment." "I know." Marcus walked slowly around the Koenigsegg. "I requested your services specifically." Preston set down the bucket. His hands were shaking slightly. "Look, about what happened at the Ritz-Carlton." Marcus held up a hand. "I'm not here for an apology, Preston." He paused. "Let those words sink in. Apologies are just words. And words are cheap. You proved that 6 months ago when you stood on that stage and said what you really believed." Preston's eyes dropped to the ground. The concrete parking lot, the oil stains, so different from marble floors and crystal chandeliers. "I'm here because I need you to understand something." Marcus's voice was quiet but firm. 200 years ago you said I would have been in your fields. You were trying to diminish me, to put me in what you thought was my place. Preston said nothing, just stood there, looking smaller somehow than he had in his designer suit. "But here's what you didn't understand then, and I'm not sure you understand now." Marcus trailed his hand along the carbon fiber body of the Koenigsegg. 200 years ago, my ancestors built this country's infrastructure. He turned to face Preston directly. They laid the railroads. They constructed the buildings. They picked the cotton that funded the Industrial Revolution. They did the work while people like your ancestors took the credit, took the profit, took the power. The sun was setting behind them. Long shadows stretched across the parking lot. And now, 200 years later, I'm still building America's infrastructure. Marcus's voice carried no bitterness, just truth. Except this time, I own the company. I hold the patents. My name is on the buildings. My face is on the Forbes cover. He walked back toward Preston. You thought my success was about diversity quotas, lowered standards, affirmative action, but it was never about that. Marcus stopped 3 feet away. It was about being better than you, working harder than you, and proving that your assumptions about who belongs in which rooms were always wrong. Preston's jaw clenched, but he still said nothing. Marcus pulled a business card from his wallet, held it out. I'm not going to lecture you about racism being wrong. You know that already. Somewhere under all that entitlement and privilege, you know it. Preston stared at the card, didn't take it. What I'll tell you is this. You had every advantage I didn't. Family, wealth, connections, a system literally built to favor you at every turn, and you still lost. Marcus's voice was steady, final. Because you were too busy looking down on others to focus on being better, too busy protecting what you thought was yours to build something worth protecting. He set the card on the hood of the Koenigsegg. That card has my office number. When you're ready, genuinely ready, to understand why what you did was wrong and why those beliefs destroyed your life, call me. Not for a job, not for money, but for a conversation. A real one. Marcus walked to the driver's side. The door rose. Oh, and Preston? He paused. The car doesn't need detailing. I had it done yesterday. I just wanted you to see what's possible when you spend less time assuming you're superior and more time actually being excellent. The engine roared to life. A thunderous, beautiful sound that echoed off the strip mall walls. Marcus drove away. Preston stood alone in the parking lot. Grease-stained shirt, work pants, spray bottle in his hand. The business card fluttered in the wind. He bent down slowly, picked it up, stared at it for a long moment as the sun disappeared behind the buildings and the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. Behind him, the neon open sign of his detailing shop flickered once, twice, then steadied, a small uncertain light in the gathering dusk. Preston looked at the card in his hand. One question remained. Would he ever make that call? Excellence doesn't need permission. It doesn't ask for approval. It just shows up, does the work, and proves everyone wrong. Prejudice isn't just morally wrong. It's strategically stupid. Because while you're busy underestimating people, they're busy becoming everything you'll never be. Have you ever been judged before people knew your story? Share below. Stories like this happen every day. Subscribe so you never miss when justice wins.